the chief editor of the Kyiv Post. Bohdan, welcome to the program. About the ports there, Odessa is the most important port in terms of the volume of trade that comes into Ukraine. This is the first we'd be hearing of Odessa not operating anymore. Do you know anything about that?
Well, it's effectively been closed off for some time. There have been warships off the coast. There has been the threat of a landing, but the defenses are quite strong and the city is mobilized. And we are awaiting a possible attack in the next days. But you see, Odessa is a sensitive place because it's a main grain exporting port. And it's very important, not only for Ukrainians, but say for China. I mean, very few people realize that China is Ukraine's largest trading partner. And much of the trade is done via Odessa. And I'm sure that the Chinese, whatever their sympathies for the Russians and in terms of the standoff with the Americans, do not want a Russian hegemony over the coast, the Black Sea coast of Ukraine.
What's
and
the
of
latest?
course, for Turkey, this is very important too, because Russia is effectively imposing not only a no-fly zone over Ukraine, but a no-go zone in the Black Sea, and effectively saying we dominate in the Black Sea from now on.
Bohdan, what's the latest you're hearing from across the country?
A stable night, a lot of rocket attacks continuing. No major breakthroughs, say, around Kyiv, the capital. Mariupol still under siege and a vast humanitarian crisis there. Likewise in Kharkiv, the second largest city in the northeast. But basically, the Ukrainians have been holding firm. And the Russians have not made major headway. They seem in the last few days to have just relied on rocket attacks, pinpointing airports, military bases, but a lot of collateral damage, perhaps deliberate, in residential areas all over the country, apart from maybe the far west.
Yeah, I mean, the pictures we just saw of those firefighters bringing that woman out of a building, that has happened in the past couple of hours. That's that residential 9-story building in Kiev that's been hit by artillery fire. At least 2 people are dead, according to Ukrainian television. Do you think, Bohdan, that as you try to imagine how this might end, that at its end, those breakaway republics in the east of Ukraine will no longer be part of the country?
I think it's quite realistic to foresee that if some kind of deal is worked out eventually. But look, remember that these 2 so-called republics, enclaves, Russian-dominated from 2014, they've been ethnically cleansed of Ukrainians. 1.6 million Ukrainians were ethnically cleansed from there in 2014, 15, 16. So there's very little left there of a pro-Ukrainian element. And remember that the Russians have given almost 1 million Russian passports to those who have remained. So, I don't think Ukraine, if it is victorious, or at least it gets a decent settlement afterwards with international help, that it will want to impose its rule on regions that have already been Russified.
But in your job as chief editor of the Kyiv Post, how difficult has it been to counter the information war that is being waged from Moscow? I mean, it could be propaganda, it could be misinformation, it could be almost anything. Nobody really knows what to trust coming out of Moscow in terms of how Vladimir Putin has set up his country to disseminate everything over the past 20 years since he's been in power, and how he uses information as a weapon.
Well, I don't think it's been so difficult since the war started, because there is no belief, there's no credibility left in anything that comes from Moscow. I mean, look at Lavrov traveling around the world. I don't think anybody takes this modern-day Goebbels as seriously. I think it was much more difficult when Russia Today and Russian-sponsored channels were working freely in the West and feeding all sorts of misinformation, fake news, and confusing the picture, blurring it, making it seem as if, well, there's a right on that side, there's a right on this side. Whereas now I think it's very clear, not only for the population of Ukraine, but of the outside world, where is right and where is wrong. Naked aggression, crimes against humanity, propaganda, and what is the cause? What is the pretext? Had Ukraine attacked Russia? Has one single missile been fired against Russia that we've heard of, that the Russians have complained about? It's a very asymmetric contest, and I think people, not only in Europe, but in Turkey and elsewhere, in America, and perhaps even in China, realize that this is about basic core values and adherence to international law.
Bohdan, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Bohdan Nahaylo, Chief Editor of the Kyiv Post. Take care.